Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Contact Loss. Today we've got Lesiu. Hi, Lesiu.
Hello, everyone.
And we will be talking about the World Championships of Warhammer, if I got the name correctly. A huge event, first of its kind, that was out on the weekend before the last weekend, or this weekend that we're actually recording this. And Lesiu was the lone representative of Poland for 40K over there. Lesiu, did you feel lonely?
No, not at the slightest. Like there was a lovely community at the venue and all the around the event, so I definitely didn't feel lonely. Like I felt very welcome, both by the United States players, but also all the players from Europe, because Um, we already attended some international events. I guess as a member of Team Poland, I'm not totally unknown. So yeah, I already made I already made some friends before this event. Uh, so I had an opportunity to catch up with them, and it was a really lovely event, and I made some new friends as well. So yeah, definitely not lonely.
That's lovely to hear. And were you as hyped? Because I think across the gaming community, the event was a lot of people were really hyped to go there. I'm not sure if Games Workshop actually picked up on that very well. I don't feel like there was that much hype around it on Warhammer community and such. What's your take on that?
I mean, they are. I think like they kind of hit it and miss it a little bit because like at the very beginning when they announced it, I think it was somewhere around spring. The
Mm-hmm.
hype was there. They kind of made some articles. They revealed it in like some, let's say, parts, and there was a lot of unknown. So I actually felt the hype a little bit for this event, and I wanted to get a ticket.
Mm-hmm.
Then I think they slightly like missed the opportunity later because there was not a lot of info during the year. Uh, and actually, even for the players, after we received our tickets, there was a little bit of delay for like more details. Like we knew the venue and we knew the dates, and pretty much that was it up until I think I would say late or early September, something like that, somewhere
Mm-hmm.
around that. So that was quite late, and even then, like the first articles that came in the fall, there were like October or I think like that. I mean, they could throw in some more info during the August, September, I think. But so my hype was kind of similar. I was really hyped to have the opportunity to go there early on, and
Mm-hmm.
then I kind of switched to WTC and the preparations on the whole event, and then I had some personal life issues that I needed to attend, and then uh, when they started posting some more info for the players and etc. I picked up it again, but there was like this gap between it. So yeah, mixed feelings there. I guess.
Mm-hmm. If it's not continued build up, then it's hard to get back to that starting level
Yeah.
of hype that you were at. Yeah, I can totally get that. So how did you get the golden ticket, and did you have any challenges getting to Atlanta? Because I know that actually a couple of more guys from Poland did get those tickets, but nobody else actually decided to go. So
Yeah.
what's your story?
So actually, the first like big pool of tickets that Poland got was from Bratislava tournament, the team tournament. Actually, I went there with a team from Krakow because I've been living there for like 12 years before I moved to where I live now. So I went with Pumba and Crazy and some other guys from Krakow, and we actually tried to get first place, because first place had like I think like 5 tickets, like for whole
For the
team.
whole team,
But
yeah.
we actually drew with the other Polish team, and then we got one more draw, and they only won all the other games. So they were first, we are second. So they got their tickets. It was Skark, Vladi, Arek, Zozo, and Kruker, I think.
Hmm.
Um, and then, like a month later, I went to Hegemonalia with another team. And we managed to win. And there was one ticket to share. And actually, like some guys couldn't come, so it came down like to me, Duda, something like that. And at the end, Duda said that he's not that much into it, and I
Hmm.
actually wanted to go, so he passed on. So thanks, Duda. And so I ended up getting a ticket, and we actually had a Discord with the guys from Bratislava that had their ticket, and we wanted to like organize the whole trip, but
Hmm.
then their hype kinda like went down a little bit later, and one by one they decided that they are not so much into it, like, as especially that their ticket didn't have that much support from any sponsors. So it's
Hmm.
actually quite a trip from Poland, because
Yeah.
well, you ask how I went there. I went from, actually I had a flight from Katowice with a overlay with a layover in Frankfurt. So
Hmm.
it wasn't that long a trip, but still like 12 from 12 to 14 hours depending which way. And it was quite an expensive trip, so close to $1,000 for a flight.
Hmm.
And then and then let's say more or less the same for hotels and some like other arrangements, like you need to you need to buy insurance for yourself, because like USA, if you like break your leg, you will be like in debt
Broke.
forever, because it's like
Yep.
$500,000 or something like that. So there is actually some other costs that are like a little bit hidden when you first plan the
Hmm.
trip. So all in all, it's well quite an endeavor to take, and yeah, but it was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed the trip, and I really wanted to like go to United States, I guess. And it was I think it was like a good mm, good reason to go, and the event itself was really nice and competitive, so I guess it was worth it.
Okay, before we carry on, I wanted to pause for a second to thank our wonderful Patreons and our sponsors, the Army Painter and Weyland-Yutani. Without the support of all these people, this show would not be possible. So now moving on, in terms of preparation, so how did you prepare for the event? I mean, uh, what were the most important differences, I guess, between WTC, which is what we normally play in Poland, to the rules pack and terrain sets that were used in Atlanta?
Yeah, so as you said, there are like two main differences. The first one is a rules pack, and the second one is terrain. Regarding terrain, we were playing on standard Leviathan layouts. So there are basically four different layouts that play on all the setups, so all different deployments, all different scenarios,
Hmm.
and they are basically grouped in like layout 1 to 3 plays down to 4, something like that. Layout 2 3
Hmm.
4 plays hammer and anvil, and so on. So mm, there is this, like I would say, um, discrepancy. I would say like that on some layouts are pretty well in, like I would say in general they're pretty good, but if you get a slightly well, the combination that is not perfect, like this
Hmm.
layout is not pretty great with this certain deployment.
Deployment.
There
Yep.
can be they can be a little bit tricky, because you may end up, for example, with 3 objectives out in the open if you are unlucky. So I would say the terrains are a little bit different and can be okay, but can be also a bit tricky and a bit more for more preferable for shooty armies. And sometimes holding on objectives might be an issue, because like it's quite easy to like on some deployments and some setups it's quite easy to kill like I don't know 5-man unit on the objective, which on WTC it's sometimes a challenge because you have walls and objectives
Hmm.
are usually behind terrain, maybe except the middle one. So that was like the first difference. And also there is a little bit less terrain, I would say, in total on GW layout. So yeah, there are some angles that you can draw like through pretty much half the table, I would say, or even more. So some long range weapons that can have some mobility are actually quite valuable.
Hmm.
As well, first off, there are those terrains that are obscuring. They're obviously cool to block line of sight, but the walls that are standing on those obscuring plates, I would say, the obscuring
Yeah, the bases of
rectangles,
the
the
rowers.
bases, are not so big as in WTC from some angles. So as soon as an enemy enters the ruin, the enters the rectangle, it's often easier to get a line of sight from some strange angles. So that's also important to take into consideration on those tables. Fortunately, there was a house rule that all the windows and all the like different spaces on the terrain, at least on the first floor, they are all filled in.
Hmm.
So there is no, because when I was watching some, I would say some streams from US Open, because they're using the same terrains, basically the same physical terrain.
Hmm.
I actually saw there are like some strange windows, some strange openings, and I was a little bit afraid that as soon as you enter any terrain, you are basically visible. But fortunately, that was not the case. So it was not as bad as I feared it might be, but it was slightly more towards the shooting armies than WTC, I would say. And the second part regarding the rules pack. So basically, there are some clarifications that WTC uh, puts in their rules pack that change the game a little bit. I mean, recently they moved away from it, so I would say the rules pack is actually not there is not there are not so many differences. Because recently I noticed that WTC is trying to make the rules as similar to the GW as possible to still make them competitively viable. But there are some differences. Like the main difference you get straight off the bat is the charging through walls that we get in WTC. So basically, as long as we are 1 inch away from the wall, more than 1 inch, cannot get charged through it. So because there's not enough space to fit a
At the
base there,
base.
and you
Hmm.
cannot get engaged from more than 1 inch away. So even infantry that could technically go through this wall cannot engage you physically. So if you have a large enough unit and you place it around the wall on the inside of the ring, you are basically unchargeable from the front. The enemy needs to go around it.
Hmm.
So it's creates some different geometry on the board when you play, especially against melee heavy armies. But here, actually, the fact that some ruins have shorter walls on the sides goes into, let's say, goes into play, because actually the way around the ruin it's usually shorter than it would be on WTC, I think. So it's not like completely blocked, but usually you can make the charge go from, I don't know, like 5-6 in charge, that would be pretty auto pass, to like an 8-9-10 in charge that needs to go around the wall. And it also can be used to reduce the number of models that we fight, because you will just
Mm-hmm.
put one model in base to base, then like 2 or 3 models in base to base with this first model, and then all the other guys will just go around and make a Congo line or something like that. So it requires you to like think a little bit differently about your setups, your charge phase. It was like probably the biggest difference. There were also some changes to well, there was this FAQ released early November, which I think was a little bit late, because it was released like a week before list submission or so. That actually
That does
made
sound late.
some, yeah, that actually made some slight differences to some armies. So, for example, Eldar could use the fate dice when re-rolling the die. So you could basically fish for expected result and then use a reroll if you had one, or command
Mm-hmm.
reroll, and then substitute for a die. Then some rules that counted as moving didn't trigger rules like Mist of Deimos for Grey Knights, or combat or squad tactics for Space Marines. So rules that required you to move within certain range
Mm-hmm.
with normal move or advance. So, for example, deep striking within 3 or something like that wouldn't uh, wouldn't trigger those kind of rules.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually was thinking about Grey Knights early on, so it definitely impacted my decision there. They also ruled out that when you have a rule that lets you the unit ignore all the modifiers to its characteristics and rolls, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't affect weapons. So no more ignoring -1 damage, no more ignoring armor of content. So it was also slightly different than we are used to play, but it was actually very recent clarification. So I think all players had to get used to it, but it
Mm-hmm.
also impacted some list building. Again, Grey Knights was a little bit affected, Votan as well. So there were some differences that you needed to get used to, but mostly it was very similar to play.
Okay. Did you get a lot of testing in with Grey Knights, or did you disregard them before that FAQ?
So before I answer that, I would first say that I was in a weird spot, because we were waiting for Codex Space Marines, and
Mm-hmm.
actually info there was a little bit scarce, and we didn't know much in September. And I already had my list from WTC, which I felt that in the index rule set it was pretty well designed. I would probably swap maybe some trash units, maybe add some more long range shooting, because like I said, there are some different angles for those GW layouts. But I was more or less happy with it, so I didn't test any Space Marines before the Codex. So I decided to play a little bit of Grey Knights, because actually after the data slate, they were not that bad, and they had some tricks that could actually play against Eldar, and obviously Eldar being a top dog, where
Mm-hmm.
everyone expected that there will be quite a lot of them. So being able to secure a small win against Eldar pretty much safe would be huge. So I played some lists on like 1 or 2 local tournaments and some TTS, and they were actually quite nice. They were lacking a little bit on the output side, obviously, because they have at best damage 2 and AP 1 or 2. So that's not great, especially. So they were pretty okay into like not those most resilient armies, like for example Eldar or I don't know Tyranids or Sister or something like that. But when you faced 3 up, 2 up Armor of Contempt, it was getting tough. So I lost a little bit. I lost slightly to like Votan or Chaos Space Marines. So I was somewhere on the fence, and I was waiting for the Codex. And when the
Hmm.
Codex hit, I did test Firestorm. I did test Vanguard, Spearhead, and I played one or two games with Gladius. And I actually took Firestorm to Piracap, and that was a miss, like a complete miss
Hmm.
of a list. I wasn't very happy with it because it had like one turn where you needed to like push with the drop, and if you didn't kill enough, mm, it just fell apart because you didn't have a lot of backup units because you had to like base your damage on Inceptors and then you had a centerpiece of a Land Raider with aggressors. Um, but actually, well, the list was not that bad, but it lacked a little bit of consistency, I would say.
Hmm.
And then I played the Deathwing Knights against Chaos Space Marines. Like actually 2 games, I won both because actually Chaos Space Marines have some problems shifting them, especially if I can move away from charge. So you usually won't charge with all 3 units of chosen, or you need to like really commit there, and I can just punish you for it later. So I decided that to stick with this because I already played a lot of Deathwing Knights for WTC, and I just built the list around it for the
Hmm.
terrain and for the rules pack, I guess.
Okay. And regarding terrain, I've heard rumors, and I was wondering if that was the case. That whereas the layouts, there's 4 layouts, and that's all cool, but the ruins you actually get on those layouts can be quite random and differ table to table. Did you experience that? Was that a thing, or not necessarily so?
Mm.
So, in terms
So
of the height of the walls, etc.
mhm. Yeah, so definitely the terrains that were standing on those bases, on the rectangle bases, because the bases were pretty much identical,
Mm,
but what not exactly identical because uh, when we were getting the terrain off the table after last game, we actually like measured some of the bases with each other, and there were slight differences, but that I guess was just some misprint or something like that. But that's a side note. But then again, the walls that were standing on those bases were quite different, but I would say more aesthetically uh, than really
mechanically.
in the way affecting the game.
Hmm.
I mean, there were definitely some differences in length of the wall. So usually, front part was had the same length as the base, and then the sides were shorter. So there you could actually have quite important differences, like an inch or so. So it wasn't streamlined there, and also those small parts that were there that were random, were not randomly because they are in the rules pack, but that were on the sides, let's say. Uh, Actually, I had quite different pieces on them. So it didn't affect line of sight at all because those were all very
Hmm.
small pieces of terrain. So you usually only counted the base, but it affected how many bases or how large bases you could fit wholly on the base of the terrain. So it
Okay.
counts it's important for obscuring rule. So there were slight differences, but they were not that profound that they could ruin a game or something like that.
Oh, okay. And another question about that, because the Leviathan tournament companion or whatever it's called says that it doesn't give exact measurements as to where the terrain pieces are supposed to be. How did it look like at the event? So was it up to the players to set up the table before the game, and you actually had like measurements of where each ruin should go to, or were the tables set up and fixed for the whole event? What was it like?
Um, so technically, the tables were supposed to be set up. Obviously, terrains move a little bit during the
Of
game,
course.
so you could either agree. But there were no strict measurements, so they're kept to this rule
Hmm.
as it's in the rules pack. You could technically ask a judge, and I think we did with Quinton after the evening. Basically, there were a lot of movement for the terrain, so I think we had a judge in the morning that corrected the terrain. But like in between games, we just eyeballed it. There's there are not so many pieces of terrain. They are rather large. There are those like L-shaped
Hmm.
sizes, like groups of terrain that are like usually in the similar place on the board, and you can like mm, eyeball it around objectives. So I think it wasn't that bad to like do it yourself. Probably on the top tables, in the top eight, they were probably asking judges every game to
Hmm.
set it up. But on other games, I don't think so.
Okay, so in terms of preparation, I think last question. So when were the pods released? Was that week before the games or?
So pods were released right after list submissions. So
Ah,
the
okay.
idea that was because actually you had a call. Don't know if everyone knows about it because it wasn't like a general knowledge, but before the submission and around the time we got the FAQ, we
Mm-hmm.
actually had a call like via Teams or Google Meets or something like that with
Mm-hmm.
all the players, and Mike Brandt led the call, and he like explained the rules pack and explained some more um, gave us some more like insight into how the event itself gonna play out, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
how to get there, etc. And so that was just before the release submission, and there they said that they are not releasing pods early, so we are not gonna try to tinker with our list to be better against certain opponents because we could guess what certain players, the well-known players, would probably bring or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure it was a viable argument, but well, I guess that was their idea. So the pods were basically released the day after list submission. We submitted the list on exactly a week before the tournament
Mm-hmm.
on Thursday, and they said that they're gonna check the list and then release the pods and make the list public. And it actually went pretty quick. Like we submitted the list in the evening, and like the day after, they were actually public and the pods were released. I thought the judges would have to take some more time,
Mm-hmm.
but it went smoothly. But still, it was not that much time to prepare for your pod, especially if you had some travel arrangements. Well, if you were from USA and you were flying like a day before, sure, you had
Mm-hmm.
nearly a week to test your list against some pods. But I had a flight that was like 4 or 5 days before the event started, so I didn't have that much time to play test be inside my pod.
Okay. So how did you feel going into your pod with two Liams? So Liam VSL, Liam Hackett, Quinton, Valentin, I think you had in the pod.
Yeah, I played him.
Uh, did I miss anyone from the, let's say, more known names?
Mm, I'm not sure that right now. I have to open the list, but yeah, unfortunately BCP is not available anymore unless you have premium. That's the part of BCP I'm not really fond of. That I think that events you attended should be up open for you, even if
Yeah,
you don't
that
have
would
a
be fair.
premium. Like I understand that uh, they need some business model, but events you attended should. I couldn't check my previous games, like my scores from my previous games, so that's kind of weird, I think.
Agreed. So you didn't get to get any more prep into the pods, but were there any matchups you were afraid of going into the event
Yeah,
inside the
plenty.
pod?
Plenty. Well, first off, Liam, that was like on a killing streak with his Chaos Space Marines, and he ended up taking Death Guard, which was probably even worse because there is so much stuff in this list. He has 9 vehicles, like 30 Plague Marines, characters. There is so much stuff, and I actually ended up playing this exact list, but run by a different player later in the tournament, and it was
Hmm.
really a close game. So as I expected, it was a tough list. And then there were 2 Necron lists, very similar lists based on 40 warriors with full resurrection like combos. And actually, in this Space Marine list, I didn't have enough damage to kill those warriors outright. Like Deathwing Knights with like oaths and when they were like a full squad, they could probably kill like 15 or something like that. I counted it. I don't remember the exact number, but it was short. A few warriors there. So basically, either I kill support and then try to like kill the let's say most of the squads with Deathwing Knights, or there is like no point even trying, and I need to like go around it, which is usually in window lose scenario. It's a no. You
Hmm.
probably will be outscored on primary, and you will lose a game. So those were definitely pairings I were a bit afraid of. I was, I wouldn't say confident, but I knew I could take on Eldar. It's anyone's game when you play Eldar, but I had some tools against it. Mm, and there was actually quite a lot of Space Marines in my pod, so mirrors are always interesting, and it depends how, uh, usually on the player skill and on, in this case, on the new detachments as well, because they are actually quite different one from the other.
Hmm.
Mm, so the lists are, well, even if they look similar and have similar units, they are actually act differently on the tabletop.
Okay. Right. So I think uh, before we go into the games, let's hear what was actually in your list. So it was Space Marines, as I think we've already
Yeah,
mentioned, and it was the Vanguard attachment, right?
yeah, and Dark Angels faction or sub
Mm-hmm.
faction, if you want to call it that. So I had 10 Deathwing Knights. I had a chapline for them, so they have +1 to wound and 4 up again mortal wounds. And he gives them, he has a blade driven deep enhancement, so it gives
Mm-hmm.
them infiltrate rule. So this was like my main piece of the army, and my bully unit. Then I had 2 3-man units of Devastator Centurions. All of them had last cannons and missile launchers. Actually, the missile launchers are quite nice because they have D2 shots with blasts and D2 damage. And in Vanguard, they can get up to AP3, so they start to do some damage. Then I had 6-man Inceptor unit with plasmas, 3-man Inceptor units with bolters, Azrael for command points, 2 whirlwinds, 3 eradicators, 5-man scout unit, and 5-man infiltrator unit with librarian that gives them lone up and stealth. Yeah,
All
that was
right.
basically my list.
Right. So let's go into your actual games. Who did you play in the first round, and how did that go?
So first round, I played against. There were close to 200 players. We were split more or less evenly around pods. There were like few Dark Angels players. There was one Dark Angel player in my pod, and I played a mirror. So that was my game number one. I actually have a picture from all. I have pictures from all my games. So do you think we can like try to share the screen or?
Yeah, totally. Go for it.
Hmm. Yeah, should be like this. Yeah. So this was
All right.
actually my first game. I was playing other Dark Angels, and we were playing Dawn of War. So basically, those measuring tapes that are probably lying around here were the deployment zones. And this is a picture taken after my turn one. So I already
Mm-hmm.
moved up a little bit. He had also 10 Deathwing Knight unit, six aggressor unit with fire discipline, hellblasters with Azrael, and then 6 men and 3 men inceptors unit in deep strike, and Redemptor Dreadnought in reserves, and some scouts. So basically, I just moved up. My Terminators were infiltrating behind this ruin, so they were countering like this objective and
Mm-hmm.
holding this one. And so I just played passively. I took fixed secondary, so I took Homers and Assassinate because he had 5 characters there.
Mm-hmm.
Because also he also had a combi weapon lieutenant and Calidus assassin. And I decided I was gonna play passively and try to outscore him. So I went first, nothing special there. Pushed my whirlwind, so he was within range of those 2 objectives, and he actually got the bait and moved his hellblasters to kill the whirlwind. Actually managed to do it thanks to Hazardous, because he lost like 5 guys to Hazardous, and it was enough to kill to kill it, because it was actually not a great move, because I had
Mm-hmm.
-1 to hit, because Vanguard gives me stealth. I had Armor of Contempt, I had cover. He had to use command point to ignore cover, and on average he wouldn't kill it. But well, so then I pushed some Centurions, killed more the remaining Hellbusters, and actually here's what um, he was a like game changing moment.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't screen well enough in this part of the table against Inceptors. I did screen against Redemptor, but Inceptors could
Fit.
ingress there, and he
Mm-hmm.
decided to do it. I had like a 9 in charge with Azrael to them, and like a 10 in charge with the Deathwing Knights. And he decided going to ingress them and then jump somewhere around my deployment zone and try to kill like my Inceptors or Centurions. And he did ingress them. I didn't kill anything with shooting, or did put some like not important wounds. And then I
Mm-hmm.
commenced to roll a 10 in charge with Deathwing Knights and just crush them. So I was pretty much ahead on trading from this point on. So he
Mm-hmm.
could just he had to basically to push with his Deathwing Knights to the middle and then to my objective. I just move away from them because his Deathwing Knights have AP2. I have only AP1, so I didn't want to face them. And I just killed everything around. And I was like ahead of like around 25, 30 points pretty much whole game up until turn 5, when in turn 4 he managed to advance up to my home objective,
Mm-hmm.
burn it, then get so that's 10 points. Then he got behind enemy lines when he was already like around my deployment zone, engage. So it was 18 points, and he could get up to 10 points from primary. So it actually came down to a single shooting because I had Centurions on this objective. They are OC2, they are 2 up safe. So his Redemptor Dreadnought and like 2 or 1 Inceptors shot them. It was really close, but they survived and hold the objective. And I ended up winning by like 5 or 6 points. So it was a bit of surprise at the end. I thought I had
Mm-hmm.
it pretty locked, and it nearly slipped away. But it slipped away because of my mistake in turn 4, I believe, because I didn't kill the combi weapon lieutenant. He managed to move away, and I knew he would move away. But he also
Mm-hmm.
spent a command point to move away another unit and block some of my reserves. So that was a mistake on my part. Uh, but it was a really nice game, and my opponent was Tony from Spain. I think he kind of misplaced his aggressors being a bit out of the game, and when they moved up, they got just shot by my Inceptors and its Centurions that went into reserves. But because I didn't mention it, but main idea of my army was just uh, mo- deploying around the board. So I have a stratagem that lets me take any unit off the board at the end of my opponent fight phase if it's
Mm-hmm.
more than 3 inches away from enemy units, and then put it into strategic reserves, which means I can like redeploy Centurions. I can take Inceptors off the board and then deep strike them again within 3 inches. Because when a deep strike unit goes into strategic reserves, it can deep strike again.
Mm-hmm.
So it just jumps around. It's quite mobile, even though it's based on infantry models.
Yeah,
So even
very
though,
adds mobility to the Centurions,
yeah,
right? Which normally move very
especially,
little, and then combined with the wider firing lanes that you have on these tables, they really
yeah.
increase in value.
So what I like said earlier about the firing lanes. So it's hard to like draw a firing lane from like deployment zone to deployment zone. So like diagonally here. But then
Mm-hmm.
if you like go out of reserves from here, you can basically
Yeah,
draw a firing lane through whole of this corridor, which is
yeah, exactly.
quite different from WTC tables. That's what I meant here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that was basically this game. It was really close, but I managed to pull a win at the end, and
Excellent.
that was the.
Always good to start off with a win. What about
Yeah.
round two?
So round 2, I played against another Space Marine list. Mm. So more mirrors, but it was not exactly a mirror this time because those were Black Templars, and so they had this typical Sword Brethren Death Star with uh, Marshall or well, the lieutenant guy and Helbrecht. So they had
Mhm.
lethal hits on 5 ups and can activate sustain on 5 ups as well. So they punch really hard. They are in Redeemer. He had 2 lancers. One was here, the other one was here because it's at the end of my turn 1. So I already destroyed
So
him. He had
it's,
one
yeah,
whirlwind
it's beside the board.
and Redemptor, and then he had a Thunderstrike and like 5-man Crusader squad, some scouts, some let's say chaff units. So this
Mhm.
Lancer was basically deployed here, like 3 or 4 inches from the edge. So I placed and we are playing the relic scenario, and the deployment was the long sweeping
Sweeping
engagement.
engagement. Yeah.
So, and we're playing the relic, so only one objective in the middle, and then we are deploying objectives every turn. So it's actually the end of my turn 1. I could go into Redemptor, but on average, with Armor of Contempt, you don't kill it, so it's not a great choice. So I
Hmm.
decided to just stay on this objective, advance my scouts to block his Land Raider, and just set up this trap to if he wants, he can go with Land Raider or even Sword Brother and try to charge stuff around here. But then I have 1, 2, 3 of my most killy units, most shooting killy units, and then some chaff around there to try to kill everything gets here. And
Mhm.
charge from SWAT Brethren is not so obvious because if he has to go around Land Raider, and I can move d6 away from him. There were some more scouts here in behind the wall there, so
Mhm.
he couldn't even go through this as well. So if I move away, he actually has problems to reach me. So he decided to go in this spot. He disembarked his Death Star and tried to charge. Well, actually, he didn't charge the Terminators themselves. It was like a 7-inch charge because of the going around. And I could
Mhm.
move d6, so it will actually be quite a long charge. But he charged the scouts and wanted to like move in such a way that when he piles in into Terminators. However, scouts can move 6 inches as well, and they have flat 6 move. So he also had to charge with Land Raider,
Mhm.
and because the Land Raider was standing in the way, he couldn't move the enough models into Terminators. So he actually um, and he also charged the Dreadnought here to kill me before his Sword Brethren can pile in. But all in all, like 2 scouts survived all those attacks. The Dreadnought only has like 5 attacks, 3 ups, 2 ups, so it's not so obvious. And he actually ended up only piling in like 2 guys into Terminators. I struck
Mhm.
him, but didn't kill enough. He was very lucky on his 5-up Feel No Pains. So I killed like 4 guys, and it actually came up to a 4-up roll for his stratagem that traps you in a close combat. So if you roll a 4-up, I cannot fall back. If he rolls 1 to 3, I only roll the desperate breakout tests. So
Mhm.
he ended up rolling like a 1 or 2. So I fall back and just killed his whole unit with all of this shooting, as well as some other chaff. And this was basically a game. Like turn 3, he did fight back a little bit. He got his Crusaders from a flank, shoot and charge my Whirlwind, and then Dreadnought got a 9-inch charge off there, piling in into Centurions, and then Land Raider charged the rest of the Terminators and tied them up in combat because again AP1. Uh, so he tried to like get back there, but I started to rolling really great and actually managed to kill both of those units and secure the victory. I was ahead on the primary as well because he left some of his units in reserves. He didn't have that much chaff to deploy objectives turn 1 and 2. So I was ahead on primary, and even if he did push me off here, I already had like 2 or 3 more objectives deployed here. So I was just farming primary there. So I
Mhm.
think after the 4-up roll for fallback, I had this game secured, and then I ended up winning quite significantly. But again, it was a close game at the beginning. I think my opponent uh, committed this squad a turn too soon. He should have
Mhm.
waited for just push up the Land Raider, take the shooting because with armor of content and smoke, he could try to take all of this shooting. And if he did, I would be in a pretty bad position. Um, but he rushed a little bit. Well, he got probably a bit disappointed by losing Lancer turn 1. And he lost another one turn 2. So
Mhm.
mm, yeah, so it was rough for him, but he probably went a little bit too aggressive.
Mhm. Yeah, totally agreed. And then round 3. That was
Then
the Eldari game, wasn't it?
yeah, so that was the end of the day 1, and then the day 2 started
Oh,
with a game against Quinton from Art of War. A lovely fellow.
as we can see on the picture.
Yeah, we had a great game. He had obviously 3 night spinners. He had obviously right guard bomb. and then like one Warp Spider unit, two Hawks unit, two Farseers, because he has both a bike and foot Farseer, and then he has an Avatar and an Outer, and Fuegan.
And
So
Incarn? Or was that the
no
Avatar? Or
Incarn.
no Incarn? Okay.
No
That's
Incarn. He had
innovation.
Avatar instead of Incarn. So this is
Mm-hmm.
like more United States way, I would say. There is a lot of more avatars there in meta than we have in our own.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually a very interesting game. Unfortunately, the mission was the one that is very random because it was supply drop, so the objectives that disappear.
Oh yeah.
And unfortunately, my objective, this one, disappeared first, turn 4. Then this one disappeared, and then this one, which is worth 15 points at the end, was obviously staying till the very end.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Quinton rolled pretty nice fate dice. We can actually sit them here: 3 4s, 3 6s, 1 5, and then the chaff for two farces. So quite nice. And he went first. So I was already in a pretty bad spot, considering both objective and going second and fate dice. So
Yeah, so
his idea was
Deathwing
to
Knights
push.
were going nowhere.
Yeah, for Deathwing Knights were going nowhere. Although actually the positions of the objectives were quite nice, because I had one guy here within 3 of this objective and one guy here in the corner. He's not visible within
Mm.
3 of this objective. So I could go on both objectives even if I get slowed. So
Yeah, but you
Quinton's
were only
idea was,
there thanks to the infiltrate, so
yeah. Well,
that
that
was
was
came in
main
clutch.
reason why I took one of the main reasons why I took Vanguard instead of Gladius, because Gladius is way more versatile.
Mm-hmm.
But against Eldar, this slow is really nasty, and without this infiltration, your Terminators need to go into reserves, or I don't know, whatever you can think about, or your opponents needs to make a serious mistake if you want to engage them at any point. So Quinton decided to push his avatar up there to try to flank my objective here, and then just camp on his home objective while with trade units in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I think he overextended a little bit. He pushed his avatar, but first off, he failed his fortune. It was his first unlucky roll here. He failed his
Mm-hmm.
fortune, so he was with standard stat line, and he pushed his avatar with movement and then fire and fate, I believe, up to somewhere there. So I moved my centurions and my infiltrators. So we end with grenades, smite, centurions, and some, I think, no, whirlwinds were shooting something different. But I managed to put like 10 or 12 wounds on Avatar. He was on
Mm-hmm.
3 or 4, I think 3 or 2 or even 2 wounds after my shooting. And I did mine this objective. So it was sticky, and whenever you move onto it, you get mortal wounds on 2 up. So it actually, I think it was quite nice counter to his avatar. And then I
Mm-hmm.
moved my terminators on those 2 objectives. And then like Whirlwinds killed Farser, I believe, the foot Farser. So it was already a pretty nice start. Then he actually managed to move his avatar, kill 2 Centurions and shooting. And he actually did a nice thing by pushing his Hawks with Fire and Fade again. So he deep strike them here and then pushed them with Fire and Fade on the objective. So he blocked my escape from charge and managed to block my objective. So next turn I killed Avatar. I killed some chaff. So I believe both Hawks unit, Spiders were already dead because Deathwing Knights charged them on the middle objective. So they were already somewhere here. And then we were just kind of trading. Turn 3, I deployed all my other stuff, so Inceptors, Eradicators, stuff like that, killing like a Night Spinner. Actually, his Fuegan was a bit lucky and didn't want to die, but it didn't affect this game that much. I did Assassination anyway. The whole game like came down to this objective. So turn 4, I made a play for it, pushed my Terminators because he only had like 1 or 2 spinners left, and one had to advance on the objective. So he couldn't slow them because he wanted to put some damage somewhere else. So I did advance them just straight up to right guard to try to contest his objective next turn, and then just drop some more stuff around. But unfortunately, this play didn't work out well. I lost 4 or 5 guys before I could act, and then I charged him, killed only like 3 or 4 right guards. Then my precision attacks didn't manage to kill the Spirit Seer. And then when he did fall back. He had like 6 guys. He did like 5 wounds after my 4-up invulnerable, and his damage roll was 5, 6, 6, 5, 6,
I
something like
think
that.
I
So,
saw
so
a
every
photo of that
every
on the Discord.
every shot did manage to kill one guy, which is not that
Mm-hmm.
obvious when you kill on 5-up because -1 damage.
Yep.
And so the whole game was really close, but I ended up losing because of the 15 points from primary on this supply drop objective. I actually made one more play at the very end for it. I did teleport my Centurions here. They could charge the altar that was on the objective. They have OC2, and he had like six or seven right guard on the objective and the altar. So I moved both of my whirlwinds. One was somewhere around here. One was already somewhere around here. They just shot right guards, which you never do, but I did. And trying with oaths, with everything, tried to kill like 3 or 4 guys. Unfortunately, killed like only one, and they killed the whirlwind that could charge there as well in retaliation. And I felt the charge anyway, so it didn't matter. But that was like one play that could give me a win. But yeah, well, tough luck. It was a really close game. We both lost most of our armies, and I think Quinton was a lovely fellow, and we had a lot of fun. And I hate this scenario.
I feel you. I always get the objective that disappears first, where the bigger part of my army is. So I can
Yeah, I
totally
mean
get behind that.
this was not that important. Like any other order, like if this was the one to stay at the end or whatever. Uh, uh, Even if this disappeared later, I would still probably manage to pull a win. Like any other order than the worst, because that was the worst. Mine was disappearing first. This was
Mm-hmm.
disappearing first, second. I could actually win because I counted the points later, and like I could get 10 more from primary in that way, and probably because I still had like a part where I could get 3 more from homers, I think, because I didn't make it one turn to try to make one of the plays there. So so it ended up being like a 12 or 15 points for Quinton, but I actually like didn't make four or seven points from secondaries that I could have because I was making a play for the objective because
Mm-hmm.
it's win or lose.
Yeah. So
So
you have
actually,
to
on
you have to risk
WTC
it.
scoring, it would be like 11-9 or something like that because I would just take safe points there.
Right. Understood. So how was your morale after that, and especially counting those points, thinking that you could have won if the random objective disappearing played out different? That doesn't sound like it's working wonders for you in terms of morale or yeah, how
Well,
you feel.
I mean, I put up a fight. I was not. I don't feel I was like overskilled or something like that. I think it was a close game. So actually, my morale was not that bad. It was still Eldar. So I mean, top meta army, and I think Quinton broke a sweat there, like turn 4, turn 5. because it was a really close one, and I was happy about my game. So my morale was actually not that bad.
Okay, good stuff. So
It
round
actually
four.
went it actually
Okay.
went way worse when I learned that my pairing for round 4 is actually Necrons that went 3-0. So I got paired up, unfortunately, and it
Oh
was
no,
probably my worst pairing in the pot.
no submarining
Um, yeah,
for
no
you.
submarining, unfortunately. Mm. And it was a tough one, although the mission was a bit. It was probably better for me because there were less objectives on the board, so I could just defend one of the objectives with my Terminator big, which he didn't want to engage. So on average, I don't kill the whole unit, but there is a chance that there is a swing on dice, and I can kill it. So he's not so keen on engaging it, at least not early on. So he actually kept away from it. Mm. And he were playing mostly for this objective on the other side, and just tried to trade. And I went first here. I
Hmm.
also took because I did some training for this pairing with Ghetto, so I actually knew a little bit how it's gonna go and what can happen. So I took fixed, I took engage and homers because I knew that there's low chance that I'm gonna kill his characters, and also it's gonna be tough to make a lot of those cards that require controlling objectives that require killing stuff. So I knew that probably homers and engage is the safest pick, and it's actually went well because I did, I think, something like 17 from homers and 12 or 15 from engage, because I was in 3 quarters pretty much whole game and twice did 4 quarters.
Hmm.
Mm, so that part went well. So my turn two was kind of pivotal for me because I made a drop here with all 9 inceptors and did manage to kill a ghost arc and a reanimator, both of them, with help of whirlwinds. So I actually thought it's going pretty well, but I think I misplayed my turn 3 a little bit. He pushed his. He has 40 warriors, Ghost Arc, Catacomb Command Barge, Reanimator, and Ktan, and
And they're
Illuminator,
nonsense.
Sheras, or whatever he's called. And his Ktan was somewhere around this objective, charged my whirlwind, and I tried to kill him with
Hmm.
6 centurions and some whirlwind shots and some inceptors. No, inceptors were not there. Some Azrael shots, something like that. Some grenades from scouts, and I managed to get him down to like 2 wounds or something like that. But that's not close enough because he
It's
started
not dead.
healing here, and I probably should have put my shots into, especially with Centurions, into Warriors, because without those Reanimator buffs, I could probably get one unit basically to like last models, and he only reanimates once in each command phase, so that probably end up going better, but it still was not that bad up until my Centurions were here. So they moved in front of the wall,
Hmm.
and here were his Praetorians that did ingress like turn before, and so they shot the Ktan. And when he tried to charge me, I moved back. I rolled a 6, so I moved 4 inches back. So got basically exactly to the point where I was before I moved up, an inch from the wall. So he couldn't charge
Hmm.
me through here. But
Hmm.
I didn't have enough movement to block this part. But this charge was like 9-10 inch charge. We didn't even measure it exactly. So he just said, okay, I'm going to roll it. And he casually rolled an 11, which basically meant that his Praetorians not only did charge my Centurions, but they also did land on my home objective and got away from my Terminators that were around somewhere here.
Hmm.
And it basically, I think this roll cost me a game because it was also another close one. It was like a 12 or 14 points loss. but he got a 6 from mine objective once, and then blocked me 2 times my 2 points from this objective, and also managed because the Terminators couldn't go there. They had to go into warriors, and they did charge them. Did rolled poorly, didn't kill enough, so they were animated, etc., etc. So I think that was a game-changing moment for him.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a really tough pairing, and I actually quite happy about this game because I think if he did play it more aggressively, it would be over a lot sooner. But still, I got a feeling that I misplayed it slightly in turn 3. So, but it could go either way. So
Yeah, but it was going quite well until a couple of dice rolls by the sounds of it. So
yeah, it was a close
almost.
game up until the charge there, which actually did like push the score towards him a lot.
Mm-hmm. So at that point, you were at 2-2.
Yeah,
Uh,
basically yes.
so going out into the top 8 was a no-no at that point.
Yeah,
What did that potentially mean for you? So there was still one game left to play in the pod, right?
yeah.
And
So,
what would, or maybe let's talk about that game, and then we will go into what happens next after that.
yes. So basically, at this point, it was mostly playing for fun, for experience, for well, getting best score possible, probably.
Hmm.
Mm, yeah. So my last game was Elder again, but this was actually a far, I would say, less competitive Elder because it was actually built with a large contingent, large part of Dark Elder. So he had 3 Ravagers, he had
Oh
3 units of
no.
Scourges, he had 3 units of Mandrakes, and then he had like Ivrain, Warp Spiders, and then obviously the Right Guard Blob, some 2 units of Shadow Specters, and I don't know why, but he decided not to take Incarn, which would fit this army pretty well. And well, that was probably the only player that was not that experienced because all the previous players and all the next players I played were like WTC level of players that actually either did attend or were somewhere involved around it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. This guy was quite young and not that experienced, and he put too many units in deep strike. So basically, whole of this was either in reserves as deep strike, except Mandrakes, but I went first and did kill them. So there was 1 unit here that got oaths and 2 rewinds, shot them. There was 1 unit here that got shot and charged by scouts, and 1 unit here that got shot and grenade by infiltrators. But other than that, pretty much everything was in deep strike.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and since I went first, uh, I actually got a. I pushed up, and since his right guard did just move somewhere around here on the objective with Phantasm, I think, and movement. So I decided that I'm just gonna push him off the board, and it worked well because I pushed my Terminators up here. I did take off my Centurions off the board. I think this unit. There was 1 unit here. And then just I arrived like Eradicators, Centurions, Inceptors, and he basically couldn't deep strike anywhere here. His only part, and Whirlwind pushed up here as well. So only
Mm-hmm.
part of the board where he could deep strike was like somewhere around here. And also when he was deep striking here, he couldn't shoot my Inceptors here because there was like 2 guys next to the ruin here, so that pushed all the models up to probably there. So basically, turn 2 it was game over because I
Mm-hmm.
did deep strike, did kill 2 Ravagers, and that Viper that was here, and it was also a scenario that was kill and kill more. So I already had 16 after 2 turns, because I was killing more at each turn.
Mm-hmm.
He only killed scouts turn 1 and 2. So it was pretty much done at the end of turn 2. He tried like some wild charge here with right guards that phantasmed here and then moved and then charged here. But they actually locked on the Whirlwind and Azrael and didn't manage to kill anything. And I just swiped the board. I think we finished the game after turn 3
Mm-hmm.
because that was basically it. So lesson learned: don't put half of your army in deep strike if you don't have any way to push your opponent off the board.
Also, don't take Drukari.
Oh no, actually, that was not against my army. It was not that bad because he had so many dark lances that he could try to chip off the. I actually couldn't show the Terminators because between right guard and all those lances, he could
If he got lucky.
pretty much whole army turn, whole unit turn in one turn in one go. If he got slightly lucky on my invulnerable saves
Mm,
or on his damage. And that was actually something I was a bit afraid of. So I decided to just take it safe and just do kill more in this scenario because he had way more units in his army. But he
hmm.
gave me like an opportunity, so I took it and it worked out well.
Perfect. So you were on 3-2 at the end of the pot phase.
Yeah.
W- did the place actually matter at which you finished at that point, or?
I think place didn't matter, but way it worked, we were divided by the win-lose ratio. So there was top bracket, top 8 bracket, which was winners of the pot. Then there was second bracket, which consisted mostly of guys that had 4-1.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was like one or two guys with 3-2. Or no, actually not 3-2, 3-1-1. So some guys with
A
draws
draw.
went there.
Mm-hmm.
And then was the bracket 3 that consisted of guys that went 3-2. And then there was bracket, I don't know if there were two more or just one more bracket with the other guys. And actually the bracket of 3-2 was not that easy, as there was still Anthony Vanella there, Olivier from France, I think there was also Ines
Mm-hmm.
there. So there were still plenty of pretty good players in this spot. Mm. But obviously it was you couldn't like get into top 10 at this point. So it was more like get some more points, maybe try to get best in faction or stuff like that, and
But
have
did
some
you
fun.
but did you then keep on playing people from that bracket that was created,
Yeah,
or was it just okay? So
yeah, we were
essentially
playing in the bracket
the
basically.
best you could be like 60th or whatever, depending on the number of people,
Yeah,
or
on
was that not the
from
case?
more like 40th, but something like that. There were not so many people with 4-1 because only
Okay.
like two or three guys from
Oh
each
yeah.
pot went 4-1. So the top
Mm-hmm.
bracket, the second bracket was not that big. There was like 20 something people or 30 something. Basically there were less than 50 people in the top 8 and second bracket, I would say.
But
So it
bottom
was.
line, you couldn't finish above them, right?
I'm not sure because I'm not
Oh.
sure about the because there were like more than one scoring systems because there was best general which consisted only of games played,
Mm-hmm.
and there I
Right.
think that it's, as you said, you couldn't go above them, but there was also best overall which counted like painting and like I don't know if there was any other metrics, but definitely painting was taken into consideration. And there actually, I think it took like the total score you achieved during your games, and you could actually get higher there. Uh, so but I did try to like get the best I could out of
Sure.
the remaining games, and I actually had quite an army that was not the lowest. There were like technically three levels of painting score, like bottom
Mm-hmm.
tricolor basic paint, paint score. Then there was like the middle bracket that you actually had like a cohesive army that was painted, like let's say tabletop quality, and then you had like a best paint bracket where that was actually like divided into like smaller, I would say smaller brackets, because all those armies that got the top scoring during the rounds were then
Hmm.
voted on by other judges and were like divided into like different categories, I would say, or were awarded different amount of points. I was not sure how it exactly went out, but I managed to score like the middle painting score.
Hmm.
So I actually went up in best overall through this. Mm. And I decided to like take my chances and play my games. Mm. And also there was this country ranking, and our
Hmm.
kill team guys were doing pretty well as I think Underworlds. Only Age of Sigmar was not that great. I'm not sure if there's actually a player there. I think it was.
I think there
Uh,
was one. I saw something on
yeah,
Facebook on their Facebooks, so
yeah.
I think they had one guy.
So we were actually in top 10 on the country scoring. So yeah, why not to add there some points there as well?
Yeah, no, definitely. But it sounds like that painting thing was actually taken quite seriously, which is good to see.
Yeah,
Because obviously it's
there was a
part of
best
the
paint
hobby.
there was a best paint competition, and there were some really lovely armies. Um, with all the display boards, there was amazing ultramarine army that consisted of this display board that has actually like two different levels, like a top level for infantry,
Hmm.
and then like some garage levels for vehicles that were lit up with some LEDs. And then they had like there was also an amazing guard army that had this display board in the desert with some
Hmm.
smoke going from some tubes and stuff like that. So there was some display boards and some armies that were really amazing, and I think I have like a video of all of those armies.
That's
So yeah.
that's cool. Yeah, I really like that. At when we're at the OGT, they also do that. There's like a moment to put your army on the display board. Obviously, if you have one, and there's a best paint vote. I think that's kind of something we lack a little bit in Poland. Nevertheless, though, there was also a preview of Warhammer stuff in general at the event. When did that happen? And did you attend? Was that something
Um,
that you think like added value to the competitive event?
I mean, the event itself, it was not only competitive event because we also had like this the painting part, but there was also grand narrative part, which took
Mm-hmm.
place in a adjacent hall, I would say, or if it was more like a room that was like next to
Mm-hmm.
ours. So there were also some more casual players there, I would say. Well, not casual, but not competitive because they were
Yeah.
actually a lot into the game. They had all those cosplay. They had also beautiful armies. They played their games. They actually had quite a schedule as well. So and there were like different rooms with different like setups. So there was like an ice place which had only like blue terrains, blue mats, and
Mm-hmm.
there was like a desert place which had this amazing board that consisted of like Egyptian themed terrain. So there was a lot going on there as well. So there are also a lot of less, I would say, less competitive players. So that's first part of the like this question, and I think it did add a little bit to the event. I unfortunately didn't attend it because there were a lot of people queued for that part, and it was already quite late. It was like 9 or something like that, 9 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
after 3 games that day. So I actually went for like a beer with Belgians, I think, something. Yeah, I think with Belgians, and then just stay around the place for some. Just did hang out with some
Hmm.
guys,
Sure.
make some more friends. But I did see some of this content after, like afterwards or even during, because I think like Ines or someone around was uh, was checking out the Warhammer community because they have had like a live
Live feed.
recap of this, I think.
Hmm. Right. Okay. Day three. How many games did you play that day? And
Oh, before we finish, we go to game to day three. I actually this is a photo of Necron mirror, because on the top table of our pod it was Necrons against Necrons with Liam and Valentin from
hmm.
Germany. That they were both for all. So whoever won this game would go into the final. So it was actually, I mean, on one hand, you would say it was a boring game because there were undying legions on both sides. But then again, it was quite tactical, and they did trade. It was all about like taking certain models from the coherency to just take whole bunch of warriors from like one side and resurrect them on the other, and so on and so on. And actually, Valentin managed to win by like a single point, I think, which was
Oof.
amazing after
Yeah.
full 5 rounds of combat. And they were in
That's
close combat like
mind-boggling.
basically since turn one or turn two.
Hmm.
So it was a really nice game, and I think it was a nice final of the pot.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
going
Yeah, I
to,
mean, skill worthy, right?
yeah, there was a lot of skill displayed there. Going into my game, six, I went
Hmm.
into DevGuard, and it was exact copy of Liam's list. So three Plague Bursts, three Brigands, and three Rhinos, two with 10-man units of Plague Marines with characters, with two each, and two 5-man units in the last Rhino.
Hmm.
And we were playing a scenario. hmm, Actually, it was Hammer and Anvil, I think. No, it couldn't be because of deployment. Actually, I don't
Yeah,
remember
looks
this
like
mission that
the
well.
diagonal
Um,
one.
yeah, it was the diagonal one, I guess. Mm. Or no, it was Hammer and Anvil, because this is infiltration and this is
Hmm.
infiltration. So it was Hammer and Anvil, I think. And it was like somewhere up to there. That's why the Centurions were here. I'm not 100% sure about it, but it was something like that. And actually, the game was also a close one. Like I said previously, this list has so much stuff. Even when you start killing it, even if your opponent makes any mistakes, it still has so many outs there. So he actually turn one was from both sides was very passive. So he did just stage some marines up the middle, and turn
Hmm.
two he tried to commit them mm, here in the middle, trying to like kill some of my Deathwing Knights, but he only committed that one 10-man unit because the other two were too far away. All the other Black Marines were too far. Some of his one of his brigands and one of his brigands was in the reserves. The other one couldn't see anywhere here. Uh, so he only could commit the 10-man unit and some no loss shooting from Blackbirds. So he ended up killing only two Deathwing Knights. He couldn't charge because he had to like disembark from Rhino after moving, because he just wanted to block this objective. It was also a tempting target, I believe. And so I
Hmm.
ended up like killing in return his 10-man unit, killing the other Rhino that was here on the objective with Centurions that just moved up the board through the like teleportation, and moving from the side of the board. And then Inceptors dropped around here and managed to kill most of these units that I finished up with ruins. So I basically killed 20 Plague Marines and some characters and like Nordlings, I think, turn two. And still, it was very close games because with his shooting, he did kill some Centurions, most of Inceptors, some more Terminators, I think. And then we just started trading somewhere here in the middle, and I managed to go up in points thanks to playing fixed because he was playing like 6 characters, I think, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot. So I took Assassinate and Homers. I didn't want to take Bring It Down because then he could just probably castle in his deployment and try to not give up points. So I decided on Homers, and I did secure quite comfortable win, I think.
Okay, good. Uh, so do you think that the Death Guard could have played this more aggressively or just better in general? Is this really a potential boogeyman list in the meta,
Uh,
considering Liam's created it, or what's your take?
it is very nasty list because combination of contagion you get from Plague Marines with shooting from brigands and plague bursts is actually quite deadly. And then you have
Mm-hmm.
Plague Marines that are OC2 that can shoot quite hard and that can fight quite well as well. So he's a very nasty list. He did the mistake of committing turn two here. He could have just pushed a five. If he did roll high enough on advance, he could just push a 5-man unit of Plague Marines on this side of the objective behind the wall there.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had like 5 Terminators or something like that on this objective. So only one OC each. So if
Mm-hmm.
he did get some Marines there, he would still get tempting target and then wait with committing his army because he only committed part of his army, which is never a good way to go because then you can usually just clear it out and you are up ahead on the like trading part there.
Mm-hmm.
He should have waited for the rest of his units, and he probably did deploy a little bit too defensively because like this brigand turn one could only like go up to somewhere there, or no, he actually even got up to here. But then again, turn two he couldn't get anywhere. He couldn't get in a position to shoot into those terminators definitely. So he was a bit too defensive with those two brigands, I believe. But other than that, he played really well. The list is really nasty, and I think that it it is very great. It is very good for teams as well. I think we will
Mm-hmm.
see more of Death Guard in soon. I think that Liam only lost to Eldar, and because he went like 7-1,
Mm-hmm.
and he also lost to Eldar like when they were training the day before because Liam also is a machine and he also played some games on Wednesday when they were like setting up the terrain, and he lost as well to Eldar. So I think Eldar is not a great pairing for this list, but as soon as we have a data slate that nerf Eldar or Chaos Space Marines, that this might be the STR army as well.
Unless this gets nerfed too
Unless
somehow.
there's get this gets nerfed. But the only
Am
part
I?
that could get
Yeah,
nerfed
go on.
are Flag Marines. I guess they should go back, should go up in points a little bit because 85 points for or 80 something like that for 5 guys with toughness 5 and all of this gear that they run is a little bit too low. I would say more like 100, something around this bracket would be more fair.
Hmm. I think that the Ubrigans might actually take a points hike as well, realistically.
They already did, so even if they take it, won't be really high.
We'll see. I hope you're right because I'm playing them a lot recently. Anyhow, am I seeing some pipes on the objectives? The
You
ones
mean
on the
those one?
sides?
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are like basically there's like a base here that's the obscuring, and there is a pipe like I mentioned, those are like those different little terrain that goes on those bases. So actually, this obscuring was quite important because you could control the objective from behind line of sight, being outside of line of sight, and also it meant that there is no line of sight like through here.
Mm-hmm.
So you had like a safe spot here behind this ruin that you couldn't shoot from from the other deployment zone, which was actually I think a well placed terrain. But like I said, those top parts were quite different on different tables. So here you could easily get a marine or stuff like that on the base of the terrain and go through obscuring. And there were some terrains that had like larger pieces, like the orc stuff we seen earlier, that took pretty much whole of this base, and you couldn't place anything there.
Mm-hmm.
Like probably
Okay.
if we go back to this picture, like it is pretty much the same piece. It is supposed to
Uh-huh.
be the same piece. So here you have like a lot less space around here. So that was actually something that could
Oh.
play part in your games. I mean, you can place vehicles on this anyway because you couldn't finish movement with any models on top of this.
Mm-hmm.
But some infantry models could try to get on the base here. So
Yeah, yeah,
like I said,
yeah.
here it's pretty tough. Uh, Here is pretty doable because there
Mm-hmm.
is only
Mm-hmm.
the pipe in the middle.
Okay, but only now that you've said that do I understand that that brigand you mentioned that she had real trouble getting firing lanes,
Yeah,
because it
that's
wasn't
why
so
if
obvious.
he played him quite defensively here, because I believe after turn one he was somewhere here. He couldn't get up to there to see here. He couldn't see through here. So he
Mm-hmm.
just turn two. He just went on the objective and then went around here, turn three, and just shot the centurions that were shooting something. So shooting the plague marines here.
Okay.
But he was already like one turn late because of the defensive deployment, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. Okay, round seven, shall we?
Round seven. I actually played Death Guard again, and I played a
Okay.
guy from Thailand. So that was definitely well, maybe not once in a lifetime experience, but very rare experience.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a quite interesting list. He had two carnivores. He had three units of Norgeeks, I think. Uh, Cultists, two rhinos with plague marines, one land raider with plague marines, and then typhus with poxwalkers and three sorcerers with this shooting profile that once per game goes up to like
Mm-hmm.
strength 8, damage 3, something like that. And it was actually a surprisingly good list. I was not prepared for it, I would say. I mean, I was not fully aware how it's going to play out.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, and he had so much stuff that he could just to cleanse and teleport homers. There were a lot of objectives because the middle one was split into two new objectives. So he could just push stuff on those objectives and just do secondaries and ignore me pretty much, at least at the beginning. So I was actually had to be aggressive here. I couldn't play passively as I would like to against Death Guard. And I did push like my infiltrators on this objective. Then my eradicators like towards the middle to kill the rhino, and then just terminators waited a bit. And his turn two, he actually made a mistake. After killing scouts, he made a mistake of charging those cultists into eradicators. Yeah, into eradicators. He didn't want them to fall back and shoot into another rhino or land raider because they did
Mm-hmm.
manage to kill rhino already. They in Vanguard they go up to basic skill 2 and 3 on Multimelta and AP5, so even in cover he has no save. So actually
Mm-hmm.
they are pretty good for killing Rhino here. So he did charge them with cultists, and I did heroic with Terminators to push first to kill the cultists and then to push up the board. We already had like Plague Marines here that went off outside of the Rhino that I killed previously. And then I just pushed my Terminators, killed the Plague Marines, and I was feeling pretty well about this game. But then he got another 10-man unit, two Carnivores, the shooting from Land Raider, and he basically cleared most of my Terminators. I had like one or two left with a Chapline. And he also like dropped Poxwalkers here and some guys there. And at the same time, when I killed the guys here, I did kill the Rhino with two 5-man units on this objective, and then wiped one 5-man unit easily. And then the second one that got shot by like three Inceptors with plasmas and like two Irwins and Infiltrators did survive with three guys, so only lost two. And then got charged by those Infiltrators because the Librarian has damage D3, AP2, I believe, or something like that. And there are some like other attacks there, and he only had three guys. So I said, I will kill one. The other two guys will just kill three of mine, and they cannot fall back and do anything. So I'm fine. And I managed to not kill anyone in combat and lose whole Infiltrator unit in return.
Wow.
Yeah, as one does. So actually, this flank pretty much nearly collapsed. And then turn 3, after I lost my Terminators, after he shot me back, I basically did nothing, like nothing. Two Eradicators, 3 or 2 Centurions that shot Carnivore here, whiffed completely, did like 1 wound or something like that with rocket launcher, but all last counts, everything else whiffed. I killed like maybe 2 of those librarians, the sorcerers. I mean, because he had like 8 characters, so I obviously took Assassinate and Homers and just moved around the board, but didn't kill anything important. And I felt that I might lose this one, but then he pushed up, he killed some more of my stuff. But then for turn 4, I managed to kill a Carnivore at last, and I did put oaths on this Typhus with Poxwalkers and put like all of those blasts weapons into them. So 2 Whirlwinds, 3 remaining, or 4, even 4 remaining Centurions. So last counts went into Carnivore, and all the blasts went into Poxwalkers, and then this surviving Librarian, because he managed to get out of there. I killed the Black Marines with some other stuff, and he was still there. So I actually managed to kill whole 20-man unit with Typhus there, and that left me some place to breathe on this flank, because he had like Land Raider here, the rest of Black Marines here, some Nurglings here, some Nurglings here, some characters here, and nothing basically here. So when we counted points at beginning of my turn 5, because I was going second, and it was the scenario where you get up to 15 points at the end of the game. So when we counted points, I was pretty sure I'm going to lose by one point, because it was 77 to 76 for the guy. Because I was doing 10 primary, he was doing up to 15, but even 10 was maxing out his primary, so me blocking one of his objectives was not enough. I could do Homers. I already maxed out Assassinate, so I thought that was my like score ceiling, but I actually managed to get 5 more from my primary by like at the end of the my turn. I just removed my Centurions off the board, because why not to? And like I had like one lonely Inceptor left in his deployment that was doing teleport Homer fighting with Nurglings, so he fall back. He auto passed the leadership, so I don't fuck up there. He fall back on the objective. There were like a bunch of Plague Marines here that were on the objective, but I did off them. I did whirlwind them. I did place my Centurions here. So actually the Centurions could either shoot the Plague Marines or do the Homer. It was important because Homer was 4, objective was 5. So if the Plague Marines would die to whirlwinds, I could win. If they wouldn't die to whirlwinds, I would still manage to get a draw, because Centurions with oaths would probably finish the Plague Marines easily. So I actually managed to, but here whirlwinds actually rolled pretty hot and killed 4 Plague Marines, it doesn't didn't matter because the character was not on the objective, so I killed the remaining Plague Marines with ruins, and I did score 5 more from primary, and I scored like 81 to 77, like very narrow win. It's
Mm-hmm.
actually here where I like really enjoyed win row lose because it was really close game, and I thought of different ways to get those points at the end, and it's one of the things I actually learned from this event, how to think about this score stuff in the like win row lose scenario where it's a lot different from WTC, where like if you go 5 points less, obviously it's a big hit for your team, but it trying to like scrape all the points you can. Here it's all or nothing, so you often take like all those very risky at the end. You often take all those very risky plays that can actually secure you a victory because why not?
Yeah, sure. But you played to the end, and that was very important because you could have shaken hands at the point you calculated points, and in the mind that 76 was your ceiling, right? But you didn't
Yeah,
do that, and you played it to the end, and you actually managed to pull the win out. So that, I think, is a bit of a lesson for all of us.
yeah. It's actually
Um,
where I enjoyed win row lose probably the most.
yeah, I can totally get that. So that was the end of day 3, I believe.
Yeah, that was the end
And
of the.
you're at 5-2.
Yeah,
And did you get a game in on the final day? Was it
yeah.
just
I
one
did
game?
get. There was a one game on Sunday. I don't have a picture from this game. I forgot to take any there,
Mm-hmm.
and I played Blood Angels with Librarian Dreadnought, with Teleport, with 10-man dev company with Lemartes, to 5-man dev companies, and aggressor combo with Fire Discipline because they had it was a Gladius, and then he
Mm-hmm.
had like a lot of chaff, like one scout units, two infiltrator units, some inceptors, some devastators. It actually that list took me by surprise. It had quite a nice game plan. It had a lot of stuff, and the teleport. Obviously, it's quite risky because whenever you roll a one, because it's at the end of movement, your whole turn may get screwed up. But unfortunately, my opponent didn't roll a one anywhere there, mm, and I misplayed this game a bit. We were playing, I believe, Search and Destroy, so the quarter deployment, and it was actually quite similar to Quinton's game in case of terrain and deployment. And
Mm-hmm.
I deployed my Terminators quite similarly as here, and I think I misplayed it. Because first off, I was going second on infiltration, so I got pushed back way back here, which was not optimal because I couldn't get to this objective.
Mm-hmm.
And he did teleport his aggressors here to kill like 4 of my Terminators, and my Centurions were too defensively deployed, so I couldn't strike him back hard enough. Like I could maybe fit like one Centurion or something like that. That was like somewhere in the corner here, but the other guys were more deployed to shoot this side of the board. Um, so I ended up not retaliating to this strike. And I actually made a play because he pushed his 5-man dev company here. I made a play to charge them and try to kill them. And if I don't kill them, they cannot fall back because they are. That's the rule of Dev Company. Lemartes was in reserves.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually didn't kill them. I got stuck in combat there, but he did teleport them out with Librarian Dreadnought. So he did advance like from somewhere deep in his deployment zone. So he rolled high enough for advance, then rolled for the teleport. Didn't roll a
Mm-hmm.
one. He set up like his whole shooting, half of his army to shoot the Terminators, and if he rolled a one, he wouldn't shoot at all. So it was a bit risky from or his side, but well, whatever floats your boat. and he did manage to kill most of my Terminators. I then like killed the aggressors, and we did trade up here somewhere, but it was already a lost game, I think. I did too many mistakes in the deployment, which actually taught me a lesson here that you cannot deploy it overconfidently with this unit.
Mm-hmm.
And I got, I mean, I should be a little bit should be a closer game because like he then pushed his dev company from ingress from here into my deployment zone, kill some stuff. I then set up my inceptors to kill his dev company, which they shoot with all the buffs, and they didn't because he rolled hot on 6-up feel no pain and so on and so on. And it ended up being like a big win for him, unfortunately. So I did screw up on the deployment part, and then I got punished a little bit by dice rolls, so I will definitely remember this mistake for future games.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So 5-3 was your
Yeah.
run. So how did you feel about it? Were you happy with the score? Yeah, let's put the question mark there at the moment.
Um, I don't think so. I mean, I was not like very disappointed. I mean, I thought that if as long as I go on the positive, like say, ratio of wins to lose, I'm already uh, not disappointed. Let's say because it
Okay.
was a really a tough. Community, I would say competitively. Like
Mm-hmm.
the guy I played last was a Spain player. He was on WTC this year. He was a part of the team as well, Space Marine player. So yeah, as well as Valentin was also WTC player, I believe, from Team Germany. Quinton was their coach and is Art of War player. So pretty
Mm-hmm.
much everyone I played that won with me was like from top players in the world, definitely. So that's that. But I think I could do slightly better. I think I got a little bit sidetracked by the new codex release. So I had a lot of things to test and not that much time to do it. Unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
I have some other things that goes in life. I couldn't just like play straight 8 hours or 10 hours like Liam does
Mm-hmm.
every day. Well, maybe not every day, but most of the days. Uh, so I did my best, and I think that um I'm not disappointed, but I'm not happy at the same time. I would say.
Okay. Okay. I
So I have
can
like mixed
understand that.
feelings about the score. On the positive side, I did manage to score best in faction because Dark Angels and all the Space Marines supplements were like different factions. So I actually was
Mm-hmm.
highest with Dark Angels.
Cool.
Uh,
Excellent.
so that's that.
Congratulations.
And in overall, I was actually not at that bad of a spot. I was like there were a lot of exequo places, I would say. So there was
Mm-hmm.
like after like top 10, it was like well, 10, 11 to 14, and or actually there was like score 11. It was like 5 players. Then place 14, it was like another 6 players or something like that. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like with number 25, I think, or something like that, which consisted of another like 5 players or something like that,
Okay.
which wasn't that bad. But definitely I could score. I think I could do better if I did have some more time and some definitely some more experience with this format and this table layout because it was first time I played this layout in real life. I only had some
Mm-hmm.
TPS streams, uh, and the rules are quite different, are a little bit different as well. So it's also a factor here. I guess if we did have some more hands-on experience, I could probably maybe pull out one win more or less. But well, it's a single tournament with a lot of different armies, so pairings also matter. Like my fourth game in the pod where I got paired up, it's actually quite kind of changed my like run there. So there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of different factors that can influence this the score, the final score on this kind of tournament.
Sure. And what do you think of the terrain? Do you want to add anything to what we've spoken about in the beginning, or do you have any, thoughts after playing it in actual real life compared to WTC? Any preferences, or maybe those preferences have changed?
I mean, it's definitely different. Is it way worse? No, it's very playable. It
Mm-hmm.
can be bad if you, like I said, if you get wrong like setup and scenario like um, combo, because sometimes like this objective and this objective can be like somewhere here, it's straight in the open, and then you
Mm-hmm.
are a little on the losing side if you are playing or like for example in this game, both of those objectives were completely in the open, so it might get nasty there. But those terrains are definitely playable. There is a lot of thought placed into them. Like those pieces that at the first glance seems like they are not doing anything. They are
Mm-hmm.
actually helping. Like they create these safe zones in those deployment parts here. It's way better than I expected, but still I think WTC is better just because there's a lot more combinations, a lot more setups and layouts. I would say there is a lot of more layouts made for different scenarios. That's important there because so
Mm-hmm.
every scenario has its own every deployment because objectives are tied to deployment. It has its own layouts and it doesn't allow this kind of feel bad combo where you have objectives in out in the open.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But that's not a
Uh,
crashing difference, I would say.
sure. Understood. So, what's your overall take of the event and of the experience? You happy you went? Do you think it's something everyone should aspire to attend?
I would say it was my second best experience in Warhammer.
Mm-hmm.
It was only bested by WTC, which is like a league of its own, and I don't think anything anytime soon anything can get close to it. But it also like the teams event goes. I think I need to finish because I think there is like
Sounds like
it
it.
got up. So just to sum up, I'm really happy I
Sure.
went, and it was probably a great experience.
Okay, excellent. Are you planning to go next year? Willing to, or like
We'll see how it goes. Yeah, I
fair
probably need
answer?
to go,
Yeah,
so
sure.
I will
I'm
finish in a
not gonna
second.
hold you anywhere any longer. So, thanks very much. I'll close out the episode on my own then, and you go to your
See you.
duties. Thanks a lot. Bye. Right. So, unfortunately, Lesiu had to drop. That's how it is with kids. It's also the reason why I'm not recording live on my own. So, well, live wouldn't be recording, right? Because that could have happened to me as well, and then it would be pretty awkward. Anyhow, we have spoken with Lesiu about the World Championships of Warhammer. He was the only Polish attendant. We are all rooting for him, and he's done us proud. So happy days about that. If you like what we do, please like, subscribe, hit the bell button, consider becoming a Patreon. Follow us on social media outlets that we post to. So that's also Facebook, sometimes the Instagram. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you very much to the Army Painter and to Weyland-Yutani, our sponsors. We're very proud to have them on board. And you can Please use the link in the description when buying from Weyland-Yutani, because you can get a 5% discount, and every purchase you make through that link helps us grow as well. That will be it. I'm the Joker, and see you in the next episode someday. Goodbye.